Hi, Sammy.
Hello, Ray.
Thanks for joining us. And perhaps you could just do a little bit of a self-introduction, who you are and where you are.
Okay. Oh, I bring over 20 years of experience as a qualitative psychological researcher and currently serve as managing director of Three Drips Psychology, a research and consulting agency based in Beijing, China. So, alongside my background in clinical and commercial psychology, I'm a guest lecturer at Chiba University in Japan and Tsinghua University in Beijing. And I'm also a regular commentator on China Global Television Network program, such as China 24 and the world today. So, with my Japanese, Chinese, and Australian background, a deep and meaningful cross-cultural understanding that can support organizations to grow and flourish in Asian markets is what our agency aim to achieve.
Wonderful. So we've got a provocative title about the reality and the hype. So what is the reality of AI in China?
We can actually separate it into two perspectives. One is from the consumer perspective, another one is from the business perspective. So for day-to-day consumer, everyone is using DeepSeek nowadays for everything or anything. And we even have takeaway platforms start to integrate AI into their systems. Also with social media such as Weibo, that is very equivalent to Twitter, and also Baidu, that is equivalent to Google, the Red Note equivalent to Instagram. They have all very sophisticated AI system implemented. So the data, the algorithm, people are extremely familiar with that, and then they're using that for different kind of research for day-to-day, activity and events. So that's what Chinese consumers are using today, and they're very, very familiar, even for silver generation. From a business perspective, I think a lot of organizations, depends on their different sizes, they're trying to build their own systems and database, and they're very familiar with the algorithm system on the Chinese TikTok or Red social media platform. So they get all these like analysis report and trying to understand what the statistics are telling them, and also with the algorithm system on this platform, they provide very in-depth, consumer analysis and interpretation on the behavior, on the shopper's journey, and also on the consumer habits. So in this way, they are actually being quite open-minded about integrated different methods into understanding their consumer and also their shopper's journey.
Super. So most the consumers seem to be heavily using AI. Do you think they know that it's AI, or is it just a feature of the platforms they're using?
Actually, with all the platform, they other than the brand name, they will have the AI put right next to it. So it's very clearly stated that the system is supported by AI. So there's no guessing when they are trying to look for different kind of information.
And is there much resistance to AI around?
I think there are certain concerns, especially when it comes to people's jobs. And well, there are several things. For example, because AI development is strongly advocated and supported by the government, central or local government, so it means that all these organizations trying to develop the AI system is accelerating at what they do. So, as far as I know, the funding and the policies are very friendly, so small companies feel less restricted if they have good AI products. That means that when there are so many AI tools and applications and also services and functions available to everyone, including consumer and business, a lot of people are considering what will happen to my job, in which part of my job will be replaced by AI, and how will I be able to sustain my role and actually having the same payment, the monthly payment that I'm getting. So I think it's a global concern. It's not just for China, but it is indeed. I think it's indeed a worry that a lot of Chinese people are thinking about at this point of time.
So we hear a lot about DeepSeek in the West. What about Western platforms in China? So things like ChatGPT.
At the moment, it's not available unless you have a VPN. So for those who are not very familiar with VPN, it stands for Virtual Private Network. And you have to pay for the service, and then you once you click on it, then you will be able to have access to different Western platforms such as Google too. And also, what we notice is that ChatGPT does not really permit people from China, including Macau and Hong Kong, to register. Meaning that if I'm in Australia and I'm using my Australian browser, I will be able to apply an account for ChatGPT. But if I am in Hong Kong, it's just not possible.
And yes, we've heard about DeepSeek a lot in the West, but there are other platforms out there. What are the ones that sort of get noticed? Do people talk about Quen, for example, very much?
It's actually not commonly used. Not many people are using this service at this moment, but we don't know. Maybe in
Hmm.
6 months or 12 months, it will become extremely popular. But DeepSeek is mainly used by consumer and also I think by business. And I think they're very excited about different applications. But at the same time, they have some concerns about the information that they have gathered from DeepSeek because some of the information they're not very authentic due to the limitation of their data pool. So sometimes people, I mean, even with our staff member, we need to be extremely careful and critical when we are faced with different search results. And we need to make sure that the information are authentic and are real, so they're not deep fakes.
So today you were talking about some people are concerned about their jobs and their employment, but what about AI and education in Japan? How is that being linked?
In China, you mean?
Oh,
Because
yes.
in Japan, yes,
In Japan is different. Beg your pardon.
yes,
Sammy and I were talking about Japan just before the broadcast started.
yes, we were speaking in Japanese. Yes. Okay.
Sumimasen.
Or yes, yes. Okay. So basically, it when it comes to education and AI, some selected primary and secondary schools already start implement like integrating AI introduction class as a test trial. So it may be very possible to have this topic as one of the main subject to learn for people even starting from primary school. But I think give or take maybe a few months to see whether or not students are actually open to this idea and how much pressure it will add on to their academic performance. Because as you know, in China, academic performance is just overwhelming. So we don't want to add extra pressure to young people these days. Having that said, we are also very aware of the competitive markets globally. And so with the schools and with the parents, and they are really worried about the future development, especially professional development of their children. So they are better prepared than feeling sorry later. So I think that's one of the very interesting Chinese parental mindset.
Thanks. So, most of the people on this line will be market researchers. What's the picture for AI and market research in China?
At the moment, a lot of agencies are using, let's say, DeepSeek for transcription of their interviews. But we are actually facing challenges as well because in Chinese language, we don't just speak Mandarin. We have Chinese dialect groups, 7 to 10 major dialect groups, and then we have hundreds of local dialects or subdialects. So having AI sometimes to recognize a different dialects or different way of using a word to describe something can be extremely challenging. So at the end of the day, when the transcription is ready, prepared by the AI, we still have to have the human resources to actually go through everything to make sure the wording, what it means is actually correct or what the person is meant to say. So that's one of the aspects that we have been using AI quite heavily. Another thing is for translations. And usually just for different language translated into Chinese and Chinese to other language. That said, the difficulties comes with the original transcription, with the dialects. So we need to make sure that we have the right version of the Chinese transcription, then we'll be able to have the correct English translation. And also some of the teams, they're using AI to summarize their findings and trying to come up with a much more logical way of putting it because I think the language, the way that we communicate in our cultural language is very different. With English, it can be very concise and very straightforward. But with Chinese language, you need to have a context, meaning that it's contextual background and understanding is absolutely crucial for someone to understand what it actually means. So with the summary, then you have to train the AI and then make sure that they understand the cultural and language pattern in order to have a summary that is actually useful for the projects and then for the discussion. So my team, we are still using, brainstorming, human brainstorming, and then we are using AI to support us to, clear up the messy and then complicated language and make sure that it's concise and understandable.
So, sort of the last question from me, and then we'll look to see what questions we've got from the audience. There's quite a competition going on ever since the beginning of this year between China and the USA to be the leaders in the field of AI. How is that seen in China generally?
Like I mentioned early on, the AI development is really, really supported by the local and the central government. And that is absolutely crucial for the growth of the AI industry. So once the funding and the policy are really friendly, they really enable all these products to go online or even outbound to overseas markets. But at the same time, Chinese people, especially these companies, they're very aware of the international trade war that it's happening right now. So with all these complications, so they're really hoping that it's going to be a fair and square game. People are very happy about a healthy competition and then the market situation. And they believe that but having that said, they believe that it's going to be very hard, to AI developed in either nations to be freely used by, their people. For example, China blocks ChatGPT and Google, and US place restriction on TikTok algorithm and data. So with this kind of a given situation, I think people are realistic towards the competition. But they are at the same time very hopeful.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's see what questions we've got. I'm just going to pull down this. So that was interesting to hear, Sami, yet nothing was surprising. In your opinion, is there a world where China might be working together and allowing non-Chinese technologies into the country?
Well, at the moment, I think China is also supporting the growth of robot business, meaning that we recently have a huge humanoid conference and exhibition I think, in Beijing. And I think they're inviting a company with different kind of technology to join and share their technology and trying to look for collaboration. But I think when it comes to very crucial and fundamental technology, I think both sides they're keeping something away from each other. So I think inbound or outbound business is often a hot topic to be discussed. They are trying to see which part of the business can be working together. And I think that's the part of the technology like answer I can give.
So I'd add a couple of things onto that. I think you're right to bring up what we call embedded AI, which is robotics. Um, China is currently the global leader in that. And whilst China and the USA, and to a lesser extent, China and Europe, have a limited amount of trade, China and the rest of the world has a very substantial amount of cooperation.
Mm,
In terms of AI, China is probably the market leader in the downloadable open source, open weights models. And that is a new competition going on. And of course, that is something which enables UK, Africa, India, and so on to play a more active role. So I think there are some interesting patterns we can see going on in that zone. Another question here. What do you think is going to happen with AI and market research over the next 2 years, let's say, in China?
I believe that the Chinese developer they were trying to come up with a different type of LLM, the large language model system, just specifically for China. Just like what I share with the Chinese dialect and the language model. And I think it will be extremely helpful and useful in supporting a lot more market researcher to understand different dialects. For instance, I can speak Cantonese because, I'm from Hong Kong, But then when I talk to someone or interview someone who speaks Shanghainese, I have no idea. It's like it's like Chinese to French. So that's how big the difference of our dialect and language. So I think once we have this particular LLM for market research, especially for qualitative research, and I think it will be extremely useful for us to start interviewing a lot more people that are not very familiar in Mandarin speaking, but extremely comfortable in their own dialect. So that's where I see the potential development in the future, but I don't know when it's going to happen.